Shane, welcome to the Way of Champions podcast. It's a phenomenal honor to have you on as someone who has followed your career a long time, from your days at Duke and then beyond through the NBA. So Jerry and I are absolutely thrilled that you're on.
It's a huge honor for me. I've known Jerry for a long time. We're talking. I knew him in the Stone Age. Now that we're both old dinosaurs.
Oh my
So
God.
the list of guests that have been on the show is robust, and I'm an honor to be finally be asked to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, Jerry, take it away.
I think we met, I don't think, I know we met 1999, 2000. Quinn Snyder calls me up and he says, Jerry, we need you down here. I want you to talk to the guys. And I go to Duke and to be honest, I'm nervous as can be. I was a Dookie all my life and I get a chance to go to Caron Indoor Stadium and I get a chance to meet the Killer Bees. Oh my God, right? Will Avery, you, Battier, Brand, Burgess, the whole crowd. And I met all these people, and you were the last one I met in the group. And Quinn Snyder says, you just got to meet Shane. And I said, yeah, I can't wait, and I'm a little bit nervous. And you come walking in, and the first thing I find out is you're a religion major.
Yep.
God, you were so different. My gosh, that was my attraction right away. I am curious. Tell us what that was all about.
Well, man plans, God laughs. And so I was very excited to go to Duke University and have a respectable degree from Duke. When I went in there, I said, I'm going to be a public policy major. That just
Yeah.
sounds nice. That sounds nice. Well, I was weeded out by, PPS 55. I said, nope, I'm not going to be a public policy major. Um, I took a class in the Old Testament my freshman year just because it fit my basketball schedule. All right, and that's the hidden truth about athletes is most of the classes you take and are not because of intellectual exploration. It's because they fit the practice schedule, and that was certainly the case for the Old Testament. But after I said that, public policy is not my jam. This is really interesting, and I was not. I would say a super religious kid growing up. I was confirmed in the Lutheran church and kind of slogged through a lot of the sermons there. But I gained an interest more in high school and explored my own spirituality. And there's something about the Old Testament class that was really connected with me. Dr. Coleman Bland was my professor. I'll never forget him. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to be here for 4 years, I may as well study something and immerse myself in something I find actually interesting instead of just filling a resume and trying to look cool for my future employers. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to be a religion major. And there were about, I don't know, 5 religion majors in my class at Duke. And so it was a very, very small cohort of people who even knew where the religion department was. But I had just so many fantastic professors, world-renowned professors, and it was a journey uh, that was very unexpected. But I learned a ton, and I really enjoyed just learning about the world's religions, and um, it gave me great context to how we are today and how we got here.
Yeah. It's interesting because my conversations with you had nothing to do with basketball. And I was really, really taken by the way you could express yourself as a young man. Uh, and we had conversations where we talked about philosophy, which was, interesting, Buddhism, Taoism, and we even had a conversation one time, not comparing, but discussing the connection between these philosophies and religion and sport and athletics. As you grew through that religion major and then get into your career to this day, do you still think about the connection between religion or philosophy in some way, and life learning, just about life, and sports itself. I think our listener could really benefit from that.
Well, there weren't a lot of philosophical discussions in the locker room, Jerry. I
Yeah,
know it's hard
yeah.
to believe. Hard to believe. There's not a lot of deep conversation on the back of the bus, 2 in the morning on the plane to Milwaukee, and so that sort of part of your brain goes to sleep unless you really try to work it and stay proactive. No fault of the guys in the NBA. They're awesome guys. They had great teammates, but the conversations that we've had throughout the years were not the conversations that we had after games in locker rooms. But I was exposed to so many amazing ideas and philosophies, and just really gave me an appreciation for people. And my basketball journeys took me around the world. I was traded to the Houston Rockets in 2006, and obviously my teammate was Yao Ming, who is Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, any Michael rolled into one. I mean, he's literally the biggest figure in the entire world, and so I was able to spend 10 years in the country of China, and um, I don't know if I would have appreciated it if I didn't have that religion background. Not for religious sakes, but just understanding people,
Hmm.
understanding what makes people
Hmm.
connect.
Hmm.
And I like to think my entire basketball career wasn't about basketball. Like
Hmm.
I made a few baskets and had some accolades, but I'm most proud of the relationships and the connections that I was able to create. Over 30 plus years in the game of basketball, and that was you know directly um, correlated, and it came from my understanding of people through my religion studies.
Yeah. You said you made a few baskets. My memory of you making baskets is 2013. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Game seven of the the NBA Finals, Miami. Was it San Antonio?
That was
And
San Antonio, game seven.
and I remember watching that game, and I remember you couldn't miss from 3 points. You must have had like at least 6 or 7 shots like in a row, and just freaking put them on your shoulder and took them. I guess I point that out to you because you're not one to talk about that unless I ask you, and you put the team on your shoulder. But I'm really amazed by how humble and how genuine you are. And I think people need to know that uh, it's the human being in the sport that seems to be the driving force for all of us. And so we're not looking at the sport as much as we are the development of the full person. And that kind of started with you growing up in uh, Birmingham, Michigan, right? And I guess it was your mom that sort of convinced you to go to uh, Detroit Country Day.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I was blessed to have two amazing parents uh, who never ever put pressure on me. My parents never had to say, "Hey Shane, go out and practice. Hey Shane, do your homework." Their message to me, and they weren't very highly educated folks. They worked hard. My dad was a blue collar steel warehouser. My mom was a secretary when they still called them secretaries. And we had a lot of love. We had a lot of books.
Mm,
We didn't have much, but we had those things. And the support of my parents from day one was just be the best you can be, Shane. And that's good enough. We love you regardless. And know that there's always probably going to be someone better than you. So don't waste your time trying to compare yourself to somebody else. Just be the best you. And um, I was very grateful for just the love. My dad never missed a practice, never missed a game. In this crazy world that we live in, where we're all over the place. I've missed my kids' games, and I'm like, man, my Big Ed never missed one game, and I don't know how he did it to this day. And he worked about an hour and a half away and drove each way, never missed a practice, never missed a game. And so I had a real appreciation for my parents' sacrifice. Um, they sacrificed everything so that my brother and my sister and myself could have every opportunity, educational and otherwise. And so I was a very driven child as a kid. I was a very curious child as a kid. I was always keenly aware of what I didn't know and as much as what I knew. And so when I went to private school at Detroit Country Day, for the first time, I was really surrounded by people who had great success.
Yeah.
Doctors and lawyers and professionals. And that's not how we grew up. Our family discussions at dinner were always around sports. We didn't talk politics. We didn't talk about any deep philosophy. It was sports and working hard, and it was great. And I loved it.
Yeah.
But for the first time, I always knew I wanted to do something big and do something to impact the world. I didn't know what because I didn't have that exposure. I didn't have that network. And for the first time at Country Day, I was around people who said, so this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Did you?
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I've heard you tell the story of going to Country Day, um, and they had a pretty good basketball player before you named Chris Webber.
Yep.
And it was like, were you immediately compared to him and like, oh God, here's Chris? And like, how was that? I think I heard you tell the story about
Yeah.
your coach there who was like, just be you, man. Don't be
Yeah.
the second best version of C Webb.
It's funny how I grew up in Birmingham, Michigan, which is 15 minutes away from Detroit Country Day. I didn't know who Chris Webber was when I was in sixth grade, and he was going to school 15 minutes away from my house until he went to the University of Michigan. So all of a sudden, and I love Michigan. So Michigan, gets the Fab Five, and I'm like, oh, Chris Webber, this guy's amazing. And like, it never occurred to me this guy went to school 15 minutes from me until I show up at Country Day, first day of seventh grade. My mom, she said, look, Shane, Country Day is a great school. I want you to go there. And I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, sure, great. Whatever you want, mom. And all I knew is they had a really cool football stadium at the time. And that's when I played football and loved football. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go play football at that cool stadium. And so I show up and all of a sudden everyone says, oh, are you the next Weber? I'm like, who's Chris Webber? I don't know who this guy is. And, I can only imagine my high school coach, Coach Keener, who's been a lifelong mentor of mine. He gets a once in a lifetime generational high school player in Chris Webber. Like best of the best, one of the greatest players ever played state of Michigan, 3 state titles, National Player of the Year. He graduates, and everyone thinks, oh, Shane was recruited to Country Day. No, I went there because my mom wanted me to go. So here I am, 6'4", on the first day of seventh grade at the doorstep of Country Day, and Coach Keener says, well, hello, who are you? I said, I'm Shane. Who are you? And I was so lucky and blessed to have a coach who already had just literally gone through recruiting and the circus of what high school basketball was, during my heyday. And his message to me was, look, you're very different from Chris. Chris was this powerful guy, strong, muscles on muscles, just power. I was a kid from the suburb. I wasn't athletic. I didn't jump as high, but I was really cerebral. He's like, just be you. Just be you. And I promise you that will be good enough.
Mm-hmm. And you were. We need to know and remember, you became Mr. Michigan basketball. You were McDonald's All-American, Parade All-American, and then you had the colleges coming after you. So you went in there to be a football athlete, right?
Yeah.
And I think what happened, correct me if I'm wrong, is you got a bad injury or something,
Yep.
and that changed your mind, and
Yep.
that's how you got into basketball,
Yep.
right?
I,
And now here you are, and John, you can take it from here, but I'm going to just say that probably many, many, many people wanted you, but it sort of narrowed it down yourself when it came to basketball, even after you were voted Player of the Year and all of this stuff. John, you want to jump in there?
Well, no, I mean, I think, but you gave up football, which, because that hurt
smartly.
smartly, but you still played like baseball and stuff, right? You were still
Yeah.
like a multi-sport athlete.
Yep.
And I'm curious, A, talk about that on your development, but B, with your own kids and stuff, like in this world where they tell kids, oh, no, you pick one sport when you're
Yeah.
6 and that's it.
Yeah. Well, look, I grew up in a different era where playing multi-sports was valued and encouraged. And so I
Yeah.
played basketball, baseball, football, kickball, you name it. I wrestled for a year in sixth grade instead of playing basketball. And so I love to compete. and I
Hmm.
love to be part of a team, and I love to help my team win. And so um, that was my mindset. And so when I retired from football because I broke my leg in seventh grade, people ask me like, when did you know basketball was a thing? Well, maybe it was because I was 6'7" on the first day of eighth grade, and I said, well, maybe basketball is going to be my ticket here. But I obviously had always loved basketball and ended up playing baseball in high school as well. And baseball for me was a reprieve. There were no expectations. Every time I stepped on a basketball court, I was expected to be everything and to dominate and score points and block shots. But when I played baseball, and I loved baseball, I still love baseball. I just was a defensive first baseman. It was impossible to throw the ball over my head, and I was like an opposite field singles hitter. All right, and I loved it, and I loved it, and I just loved being a part of the team. And I didn't play that much, to be honest with you, but I remember the one home run I hit in high school, and that's a lifetime memory. As great as 6 3-pointers in Game 7 was, I'll always remember my last home run in high school, which was awesome. But but my parents did a great job of saying, never let basketball or sports define you.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a pretty good job of that throughout my career. I'm a person who a curious person who plays basketball. I'm not a basketball player who's curious. And I think there's a distinction especially in athletics and at high levels, you can let that reputation swallow you whole, and you become just an avatar of yourself, and you become defined by your athletic success. And I've seen a lot of people really struggle uh, with that, and we can talk about that later. But I struggled with that to an extent when I walked away from the game.
Hmm.
And I did a really good job of trying to separate the two. So, I always wanted to be able to use athletics as a platform and use it to do the things that I want to do and get out of life and create connections with folks versus the other way around. And I think I navigated that pretty successfully. But uh, again, it was about experiences. It was about connection. It was about doing the best you could in whatever it was you're facing that day. And that mindset served me well.
Yeah. I love how you said that baseball or a different sport gave you a bit of reprieve from where you're expected to be the man every day. And it's also really interesting to learn like what's it like to be maybe a role player or
Yeah.
whatever. Because, the higher up you get in any sport, the less chance you have of being the man,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And so, yeah. So how'd you pick Duke? Because you probably could have gone anywhere you wanted, and obviously Michigan had a great run there for a while and everything. Like how Duke? What was it about Duke?
Well, Jerry, I don't know if we ever discussed this, but I did not like Duke when I was in middle school growing up. I was a Michigan guy.
A lot of people hate Duke, don't they?
Oh,
Still,
now it's
my
now it's
God.
it's like cool. It's like cool to like Duke, all right?
Yeah.
But I went to school when it was not
Yeah.
cool, not
Mm.
popular to like the Blue Devils. And I cried when they beat UNLV. I didn't like Christian Laettner. I didn't like Bobby Hurley, and it wasn't until 1994 when Grant Hill was the man.
Yeah.
And I started to really look at colleges, and I had a coach said, "No, you can be like Grant Hill." And so Grant became my favorite player, and it was kind of always Duke. Grant to this day is a close friend, and I get a giggle every time he texts me. I'm like, this is Grant Hill's texting me. Um, but it offered an amazing competitive environment, which I loved. I loved that everyone who goes to Duke wants to do big things, wants to impact the world. The phrase "work hard, play hard" was applicable when I went to school. And Coach K. I mean, it's hard to say no to Coach K. Coach K did something that I learned when he was recruiting me. I understood his superpower. And his superpower is he can look. It was competition, and I'll never forget when I was being recruited. I had my choice of schools, and I had coaches offer me playing time and offer me shots and minutes. And Coach K came into my living room and said, "Look, Shane, I'm not going to promise you shots. I'm not going to promise you minutes. I'm not going to promise you anything other than the opportunity to earn playing time every single day in practice. And if you're good enough, you'll play." And I said, "Oh, you're talking to me.
No, no guarantee, no guarantees.
You're talking to me about if I'm good enough, I'm gonna play.
Yeah, right.
I don't know about Elton Brand. I don't know about Trajan Langdon. I promise you, when the dust settles after a practice, I'm gonna be left standing." And so he knew, like my button was competitive juice.
Yeah.
And I thrived off the competition, and I thrived off of proving people that no, I belong. I belong. And that was the button that he pushed when I was a high schooler, and it was hook, line, and sinker. I went to Duke. I said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you like why I should play. And that was a theme throughout my 4 years at Duke. Coach K finding the exact right button to push for me to get the absolute most out of me.
What a gift.
It is
What a gift.
so rare.
His gift, but a gift to you or to any player as well, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, we just had our 25th anniversary reunion this past weekend. So my cup is full. The first time the 2001 championship team had ever been in the room together in 25 years. Duke had never brought us back together. So I finally said, all right, I'm the party planner. All right, we're coming back. Just January 10th, we're gonna have a reunion, and it was one of the all-time great weekends, and just was reminded of the special journey of people, and the special relationship we all have with Coach K, and it's forever. It's literally forever. We picked up after 25 years like it was yesterday, and I tell people just like, look, I hope you have a journey worthy in your life one day that time doesn't diminish anything, and you can pick up with the same people, have the same jokes and the same connection, the same bond. Truly, truly, truly blessed and grateful after an amazing weekend.
The environment is what I remember. I'll never know what it's like to be a Dookie. I'll never know what it's like to come out of that locker room with the Cameron Crazies. But I was there watching several games in my career, and I know Quinn quite well. Snyder and I are friends, and Coach K, they set an environment, didn't they? So it comes from this environment that feels safe to allow you to connect and care so deeply for each other that they're now calling it a brotherhood. I look at the shirts now, it says brotherhood.
Yep.
And that's what you had. And it comes from a coach who sees not so much the win and loss as much as the value of connection and caring. And as a spectator, I have goosebumps right now on my arms from watching a game against the University of Maryland when they had Steve Francis
Mm.
back in the day. And my very first game at Cameron was a dream come true. It was something I always wanted. I always wanted to go there. I was willing to pay my way. Unfortunately, professionally, I got pulled into that. And I can't tell you what how to explain that feeling of sitting in Cameron Indoor Stadium and watching you guys run out of the locker room. What I don't want to know, and what our listeners are probably interested to know, is what was it like for you? What was that feeling like coming out with the Cameron Crazies camping out 5 days in a row? Why don't you take it from there and let us in on that secret?
it, it was so intense. It was so intense, just walking. I was back there this weekend, obviously, and just remember walking to the gym for an ACC battle against Maryland. The band is there playing before the game, and there was an electricity, just in the air that you could feel. And it was very serious. All right, well, it wasn't like we were jumping around and laughing and joking. When you stepped foot in Cameron, it was all business, and there was an intensity and a smoldering from the time that you stepped in the building till the ball went into the air. And Jerry, like, I think the reason why Quinn wanted you to talk to me is to chill me out a little bit, because my freshman year, before we started talking, I used to get so ramped up for this atmosphere, and so just like anxious to perform and be my best. I used to throw up before games. And I had never done this before. I would
Wow.
literally, I would be announced with the starting lineup. I'd go out right for the jump ball. I'd say, "Oh, here it comes." I'd run back to the top, to the huddle before they're about to throw the ball up. Grab a Gatorade towel, throw up in the towel, throw it back, go out and play a game. Because I wanted to play well so bad. It meant so much to me that, especially in Cameron, um, it just was so intense. And the feeling of playing well there was nothing I'd ever experienced to that point. And so, Quinn Snyder, my coach, has said, "Shane, this is not healthy nor sustainable. So we need to figure out a way to channel this all this extra energy and all the extra emotion and for good." And so, Quinn made me breathe. And so he literally would sit me down
Right.
and say, "Shane, let's breathe. Let's
Hmm.
breathe. Let's
Hmm.
just let it out, and you're going to be great today. Don't worry about the outcome. Just
Hmm.
just exist right now
Hmm.
and breathe." And
Yeah.
so Quinn really saved my life.
Yeah. He has so many athletes across the board. And I remember him saying, it's all coming back to me now. It's been so long, but I remember him saying to you, "Can you just work with this guy? He's just a nervous wreck." And the first thing I thought of, well, that's when we came into the religion. I said, well, if he's a religion major, just maybe he'll love to meditate,
Yep.
which involved the breathing. And we sat there on the couch and we meditated quietly with all the noise going on in the gym and stuff like that. And for whatever it was, I think everybody needs to know that it's not a bad way to go when you're
No.
feeling, nervous, is to calm down and
No.
meditate, right?
No. No. And you know
Yeah.
what? I never lost the feeling of anxiousness. Um, but I didn't let it paralyze me. And I
Hmm.
think that's the biggest lesson that I learned. And what I tell people who care about high performance is like, look, like if you feel nervous, that's good. That shows your body and shows your brain that like, no, this matters and this
Yeah.
is important and you care about the outcome. But
Yeah.
the difference between people who perform are they don't let those feelings paralyze themselves. They use it as okay, yeah, my body's primed, I'm amped, I'm gonna be my best today, and they use it as fuel, not as a block for
Yeah.
performance.
And to be excited about that,
Yeah,
excited about two things. Number one is having the cognitive restructuring going on, where you reframe the whole thing. And the other thing is excitement is the same coin as anxiety. It's just the flip side.
yep,
And once you can identify that, which you obviously were good at doing, it changes everything. And so for those who are listening, uh, you know, you're experiencing anxiety. It just might be that you're extremely excited and
yep.
it's doing the same thing physiologically. And once you can identify that, obviously, you weren't throwing up much longer than that. You probably did your last towel after you learned that lesson.
100%, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. And I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm glad I learned that lesson.
Yeah. Were you that competitive as a younger kid in high school too, or is that just something that sort of the bigger stage really set on? Like I get asked a lot, like my kid is so competitive, they freak out before games. What do you do? Is that something you, and if you got that question, what would your advice be?
Yeah, look, I was always competitive. I love to compete. And I tell people that like sports for me and competition for me when I was super young was a way that I found love. All right, because I grew up very different than all of my friends. I was the only kid who had a black dad and a white mom. This is 80s. Like there weren't a lot of role models of biracial kids and mixed kids anywhere. I was very poor. I remember what a government cheese sandwich tasted like. All right, we had a roof that leaked when it rained, and I was like freakishly tall. I was the kid who had to carry a birth certificate with him to every little league game, because I was taller than everyone else, and no one thought I was my age. And so I was very different. I was very different everywhere I turned, and kids just want to be like everybody else. They don't want to be different. I love that I'm different now. I learned to embrace that, but at the time it was very difficult. And the one place that I felt I was like everybody else was at recess, playing kickball, playing baseball, playing football, playing basketball. And I realized that when I help my friends win and I help my friends look good. I'm just one of the guys. I'm just a teammate. And so I learned a lot in kindergarten and first grade from competition, um, what it took to win, what it took to help my friends win. And it wasn't about like my performance. And so I didn't really um, ever get nervous about like how I'm going to perform. I just didn't want to let my team down. And I think that's where the anxiety came from. Like, I don't want to be the weak link
Yeah.
because winning is important because we all care about it, and I don't want to let people down. And so I think that's the root of where my all my anxieties came from. But that was the hallmark of my entire basketball career: win for love and acceptance.
Yeah. Let's shift gears here for a second. 2001, you win a national championship, get Player of the Year, MVP of the Final Four, and now the next step is getting drafted. I think you were sixth overall, if I recall,
Yep.
and the NBA Grizzlies going from Vancouver to Memphis. Uh, what a difference than Duke and Coach K, huh? What? Uh, Tell us a little bit about, take us through that process
Oh
and what you were
boy.
feeling. Oh
Oh boy.
boy.
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I couldn't have accomplished anything more in my college career. 4 years, 131 wins, two Final Fours, national championship, every major award.
Yeah.
Um, Literally lived a dream. Okay. And so when I got drafted by the Grizzlies with the sixth pick, I'll never forget, first of all, I was calling every GM on that day who was in the lottery saying, look, I know I'm 22 years old. I'm going to get better. Because at the time, everyone was enamored with the high school kids and their potential. And so I felt like I had done everything, but like still that wasn't good enough compared to the upside of these young guys I was being drafted with. And so when I was drafted in the NBA, it was more of a relief than it was like a dream come true. I was just like, oh, I'm glad that's over. And so I get drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies, who at the time had the lowest winning percentage of the four North American sports, professional sports: NHL, MLB, NFL, NBA. They had a 20 winning percentage,
Hmm.
okay, which made them the worst franchise in professional sports. And so I learned what that meant on my first day at the office. And so, look, I'm used to Duke. I'm used to communication, and we look each other in the eye, and we huddle, and we
Brotherhood. Yeah.
brotherhood,
Yeah.
and on the first day, we had to run 1 mile, 4 laps around the track for our conditioning test. And I had three or four teammates that couldn't finish a mile.
Hmm.
And I'm saying, oh, oy vey, like what's going on here? And we lose our first 10 games, my first 11 games of the season. We have a players only meeting, and I stand up because, this is what you do at Duke. You stand up and you state your piece, and that's respected. And I said, you know what? The leadership on this team stinks. And the veterans, I always thought as a rookie I'd have a veteran take me under their wing and teach me what the NBA was, and we don't get any of that. Like why? And they looked at me and said, "Hey, Duke boy, shut up and go sit in the corner."
Hmm.
And I realized, look, I'm not in Kansas anymore. I'm not in Durham anymore, and I had to change my approach and realize that not everyone's a Duke fan. B, not everyone had the training and the experience that I had about building teams and winning, and this would take a different approach.
Hmm.
And so I had Pau Gasol on my team, who was drafted third, and so Pau was fresh from Spain, barely spoke English, but he cared. And so it was up to us to kind of band together and do the right things and don't make excuses and don't point fingers and stay late and help each other and be positive. And funny thing happened, like the people who didn't have the confidence to act that way, when they saw it was okay because Paul and I were doing it, and guess what? They started to exhibit winning behavior. And the winning behavior became behavioral norm in our locker room. And all of a sudden, we had a critical mass over the course of 2 years of people doing the right thing. And the malcontents, the guys who couldn't finish a mile, they self-selected. And so it was an amazing lesson in changing a culture. I'd been a part of great cultures in high school and college, but changing a culture, it takes a few brave souls to stand up and say, no, like we're not going to stand for this,
Mm.
and we can be better. We can be better. There's a better future.
Yeah.
And
When they
it,
when they drafted you, you think that was part of the reason why, or that did they know that you might bring that, or
I like to think so.
yeah.
It's not for my good looks, but you know,
Oh,
You and I
you
got
know,
the same haircut. Take it easy there.
exactly.
you're following me. Go ahead.
Most people don't know how to win if you've never been in that situation. All right,
Yeah.
you think you have an idea, but you don't really know until you actually do it. And so
Hmm.
you need some people who've done it who say, no, no, there's a better future. This is the way. And it's hard. And it's hard. It involves sacrifice. It involves a pain that people who've never won aren't used to.
Yeah.
But that's what it takes. That's what, the way of the champion is about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You
that's
became,
amazing. Go ahead, Jerry.
go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to say that. I mean, that's amazing and such an interesting thing because as a coach, you always want to sort of, if you, that's not your culture, you want to change that, and you bring in people who have the courage to change it. And I think the point that you made about you and Pau Gasol, like, okay, just two of us show up and we'll do this. And I think
Yep.
this is so important for our listeners or for athletes listening to this. Like, listen, you don't need your whole team for you to be your best. You just do the work. You show up early.
Yeah.
You stay late. Find someone to
Yeah.
do it with you. And all of a sudden, you get those people in the middle who one day they're good, one day they're bad, but now you're giving them permission to be that. And then, like you said, the ones who don't, it becomes an uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah.
Before you got there, it was very comfortable to not be able to run a mile.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, it's not.
Yeah. They self-select and then they leave. That's a great point of you guys just coming together and being who you are and making that happen. Being who you are, not doing what you do. And being who Shane is the glue guy, right? The glue guy. You have a podcast today. I'm sure our listeners need to know. Called the glue guy.
Yep.
And I've been there many times, and it's wonderful. I love it. Can you tell us more about that? It seems to be kind of a hallmark of your entire career and beyond. Like even now, as we sit here, I can sense that. But what does that mean? And what is that all about?
Well, it's funny. I've played every role on a basketball team. All right. I've been the captain. I've been the focal point. I've been on covers of Sports Illustrated, and I've waved the towel and brought water to my teammates. All right. So I've played every single role. And the funny part about all the roles that I played, and I think Coach K said it best to us. He said, "Look, we are all role players. We're all role players." All right. Now our roles may be different. For some of us, it might be to be the best practice player and get our starters ready to play the game. Others, it might be to grab 10 rebounds and be a defensive stalwart. But we cannot be our best self, our best team, unless everyone performs their role to the highest ability, to the best of their ability every day. Right. And so I never looked at being called a glue guy as a put down. I took great pride in doing my job to the best of my ability, controlling everything that I could control to the highest degree to help my teammates win and be better. And so it's a mindset. And I love the Latin phrase "sua sponte." I mean, it means of one's own accord. All right.
Mm,
And what that
hmm
means is if something has to get done, do it not because someone told you to, do it because it's the right thing to do.
mm,
And so in basketball, that's diving for a loose ball. That's running back on defense. That's setting a great screen. That's being a great inbounds passer. None of those things will ever cause anyone to run into a team store and say, "Oh, Battier is such a great inbounds passer. Give me his jersey." Right? They're not putting me on Sports Center saying, "Oh, look at this screen by Shane
yeah.
Battier." No, but
ESPN's not going to put you on the show because you sprinted your lane.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But you know what championship teams do? They do those things,
that's right.
right? And they have multiple people who do those things, and they do them not some of the time, but most of the time, or all the time. And so, being a glue guy, a glue gal, is the name of our podcast, and we try to celebrate uh, catalysts, people who make people better, who elevate each other, who get the most out of the performance out of the team. Not by their own individual skill, but by creating an environment where everybody can be their best self,
Mhm.
right? That's the goal. That's the goal. And when you have an environment like that, like I experienced at Duke or the Miami Heat, things that you accomplish as a team, ah, they're forever. They're forever, and it's like the most worthy journey that you can take. Uh, but again, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. But at the same time, the good news is all these things are in your control. It's your
Yeah.
mindset, it's your effort, it's your concentration, it's your ability to be self-aware and
Yeah.
know what you know and what you don't know. And
Yeah.
so that's the good and the bad news. It's
And you
hard,
can
but it's in your control.
and you can lead on the court in practice. You can lead on the bench. You can lead in the locker room, bringing people together socially, like all these ways. I was a soccer guy, and one of my friends who went on and won a couple Major League Soccer championships as a coach, also a Michigan guy, Caleb Porter. Caleb talked about the importance of glue guys in a soccer locker room, and he said for him, for them, it was the guy who could go sit at every table at lunch
Yep.
one day be comfortable with because they speak Spanish, one day with the suburban guys, one day with African players, African American players, whatever. But you needed people who could sit at every table. And if you didn't have that, it didn't matter how much talent you had. And this is what you're talking about. And it's so, we our kids now get so much pressure to get your statistics,
Mhm.
right? And that's what's going to get you noticed. And it's about me. But yet every coach wants the person who's going to set the screens and run the lane and dive for loose balls and the things that don't show up in the stat
Yeah.
sheet. That's what's going to win them a championship.
100%. And especially for young people, I feel badly. I have a high school junior who I coach in high school and very good basketball player. He's going to play in college. And my daughter's a very good soccer player as a freshman. And for their generation, I call it the old hand computer. They put up the hand computer, the cell phone, and all they see are images of perfect curated images and videos of look how great my life is, look how special I am. And so the message that young people, and I think old people too now, fall victim to is that the only way that they will receive recognition, love, respect, call it what you will, is you have to get on your box and say, "Hey, world, look how great I am. Look how
Mhm.
great I am. I'm special. I'm different. I'm talented." Right? Because that's all you see on the social media and all the images that you see. And um, I argue it's the opposite. I argue it's the opposite that, first of all, we are all too busy with our own lives to be wandering the streets saying, "Oh, I wish I could just see some talented people. There's some people I need in my life." No, we're all too busy for that, right? The way to be recognized as an individual is be a part of a winning team,
Mhm.
right? Win and win a lot, and whatever winning is for you, all right? And I tell people the purest moment on any journey with a team is the championship moment, all right? And I'll never forget standing on the dais, about to receive the trophy, with the Heat, with Country Day, with Duke, and at that moment when you're holding that trophy over your head, there is no one asking you, "Hey, how many points did you score that game?
Mhm.
How many minutes did you play in the championship game? What was your role?"
Mhm.
No one cares. All they know is, man, you are a champion. Congratulations. How does it feel? How does it
Mhm.
feel?
Mhm.
And I think that's poetic. And like, I never heard that message anywhere. I get two questions about my career. All right. Um, no one asked me, like, "Shane, how many points do you score? How many rebounds?" I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. They asked me, "Hey, where do you keep your championship rings? And how do you decide which one you want to wear?" Now, that's a pretty cool legacy, right? That's a legacy that you know everybody who plays, that'd be a nice legacy to have. Like no one cares about how many points I scored. It wasn't that many. I average 8 points a game or something like that. I don't even know. But if you want to have value, if you want to get respect, if you want to have people who want you around their team, be a cog, be a catalyst, do your job, help people do their job better. And if you do that again and again and again, you will not fall through the cracks. You will be recognized, and you will get what you want out of your team journey that you seek.
Yeah. So you come out of Memphis. You've learned a lot of lessons. You understand yourself a lot better. You know now that you're in the NBA. Different life than Duke, totally. And Houston, go to Houston, successful career there. But then you get called into the Miami Heat environment. If I can, let me jump to that because pretty significant. I mean, you go to a team like the Miami Heat, and in all your humility, you won't say this to yourself, but I can say it to you. You were significant. You were starting many games with LeBron James. Let's see, who is he? Oh yeah, okay. Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Shane Battier, all in the same breath. What the heck? Wow. It doesn't get any higher, winning back-to-back NBA championships. What was that like to get to that place in your career?
Well, first of all, one of these is not like the other, all right? And so I tell people I was sort of like the fifth Beatle, okay? No one knows who the fifth Beatle was, but he was there, all right? He was
Yeah.
carrying the bass for everybody. Um, Look, at that point in my career, I played 10 years. I'd never been out of the second round of the NBA playoffs, right? And so and that always really bothered me that I was on great teams in Houston Rockets. We were always a little banged up, never really reached our full potential. And so I wanted to go for it. Okay, so when I was a free agent for the first time, my 10th year, I knew I was going to San Antonio or I was going to Miami. And the challenge in Miami was especially enticing because they had just lost to the Dallas Mavericks, really in a public, embarrassing fashion. There was a lot of humility pie that was eaten by the Heat that year. And to be frank, I knew they were going to win a championship, and I thought, well, maybe if they win, I can get a little bit of credit for being the missing link. But I joke, but it was just I'd always prided myself on being the best with the best players in the world, and it was a great chance for me to again just elevate the greatest players, some of the greatest players that ever played the game: LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and look, at this point, I knew that again, the goal is to maximize what that team can do, and I thought I had done that in Memphis to an extent through the injuries. We did that in Houston. But this is my chance to optimize and go to the top of the mountain and do something that will be remembered forever. And so that's why I went to Miami. And
Wow.
um, let me tell you, it was really hard at first. And I questioned whether I had made the right decision. Um, I'll never forget the photo shoot. The Heat always had these crazy introduction videos, and I get there, and I'm just from outside Detroit, Midwestern guy, and there was my wardrobe, and I'll never forget. There were two polo shirts on. And I take them over there, and I say, "Hey, look, I got two polo shirts. Like, which one do you want me to wear?" And the director was like, "Oh no, wear them both." I'm like, "What? Like, who wears two polo shirts?" And so I'm like, "Where am I? Like, what am I doing here? Like,
You're in Miami.
I've made a terrible mistake." And so it took me a while to adjust to South Florida in Miami, but I tell you what, the ride and like the edge that team had, it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The pain that they felt from losing to the Mavericks and the motivation uh, um, that next year that I was a part of, it brought me back to Duke really, and we had a fantastic year, we win the championship, and it was just as special as I could have hoped. And I ended up being the power forward that year on that championship team. Again, not not because I said, "Hey, yeah, Coach Bill, let me guard guys that are 40 pounds heavier than me so they can beat the heck out of me." But because we had an injury to Chris Bosh, he went down. We didn't have a backup power forward. Coach Bill
Mm.
came to me and said, "Hey, we need you to play power forward." I said, "All right, Coach, put me in." And I'm very proud that, despite being severely undersized, I wasn't the weak link and actually helped us win a championship.
What was
Beautiful.
what was Eric Spoelstra's superpower as a coach, because when you get to that level and you're managing all these big personalities and all these people, and getting them together behind a common goal, and it sounds like he created there was a very professional environment, a championship environment that you'd been craving. What was his superpower?
Yeah. You know, his competency, I would say. Um, Look, not an easy group to coach.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of opinions, a lot of egos, a lot of emotion, right? It so when you have a group of talented people, all right, skepticism is like the poison for a team like that. They're always looking, all right, for chinks in the armor. And aha, I knew that guy was a fraud,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah,
Gotcha. I
gotcha.
gotcha. So you have to be on your game. You have to be like over prepared. You have to know contingencies of contingencies. And
Yeah.
that was Eric Spoelstra.
Mm.
He did his homework. He did the film study. He thought hard about what we needed to win. Was he perfect? No. No. And was his communication style always perfect? No. But there was never a doubt in the locker room that Spo knows his stuff and
Mm.
Spo's prepared and Spo is ready to lead us. In the NBA, like that's once you get in the playoffs, like that's where a coach makes their money, right? And that's where you can lose a team. And
Mm.
so to Spo's credit, even though now he's Spo, back then he was still Eric Spoelstra. Um, but he accepted the challenge, did it with humility, and he showed that he was a bona fide Hall of Fame coach with his level of competency and preparation.
Did
How
Pat
was he?
Riley into that
No,
dynamic at all?
you know, people at the time, oh, Pat's calling the shots. Pat Riley, he addressed our team one time during my year in the first year in Miami. One time, it was before the championship game. He just wanted to remind us that, Dallas came into our town and drank our champagne and went to our celebration and they have something we want. So don't forget that. After that, he never addressed the team.
Mhm.
So despite public belief, that was Spo's show.
Mm. That's how did he you talk about, it's difficult to manage people with big opinions and stuff. And I think as a coach at that level, like you have to let players weigh in to buy in as well to build that trust. So where would he rely on you all to say like, all right, what do you feel like we need to do in this moment?
Yeah, there was great collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think that like that was the time in the NBA where coaches became less traditional coaches, and they became more collaborators,
Hmm.
right? Like I would say most coaches today aren't coaching, they're not teaching the life lessons that, I was taught as a young player. It's more, hey, how can we work together to win games? And you're
Yeah.
much more of a collaborator. Just different. It's not bad, but it's just different. And Spo, I think, was a very good collaborator. He was always open to feedback. And I was tough on coaches. Okay. I asked every contingency question that there possibly could be. I asked more questions because I wanted everyone to be clear on what the game plan was. And I wanted no gray area when we stepped on the court. All right. So I held coaches to a very high standard. I was that annoying that kid in class who always asked questions. But I was doing it not to show anybody up, but for clarity. And so Spo was very good about taking input, taking feedback, and holding his ground sometimes, but allowing us to have ownership of our journey, which is a very difficult skill for leaders to have. To give true ownership to your team and your people, but I think Spo did that, so we felt we had a seat at the table.
Yeah. Your
So
your own coaching today, you said you're coaching your son, right?
Yeah.
Juniors in high school. How do you deal with the Shane Battiers on your team that drive you crazy?
Well, yeah, my guys drive me crazy in a different way. Okay.
Yeah.
No one is as nerdy as I am in trying to pick apart game plans like I was. The challenge for these young guys today, again, is understanding like what is success and uh, how you become a great player. And it's not necessarily what you see on social media or on television. They think it's scoring. They think it's all the splashy plays. And trying to get the message across. It's about standards, right? It's not about results. It's about standards. What standard do you hold yourself to, right? Are you in shape? Do you listen? Are you coachable? Do you make the small plays? Do you support your teammates? Right? What do you accept from yourself? And if you what you accept from yourself is at a nine, guess what? You're going to be a good player, right? If you don't expect from yourself uh, just championship behavior, you're not going to get there. And it's not always a lesson that young players take to. And I say, guys, many of you are going to be coaches one day, and I promise you, you're going to say the exact same thing to your teams, and at some point, it will click. So trust me, I've lived it, and some will get it, some won't. That's okay. At some point, all of them will get it. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Go ahead, Jerry.
I was just going to take it a little bit further here. So in 2014, two championships won, uh, Larry Trophy, uh, all of that stuff. It's all great. And then in 2014, things begin to radically change. You go to work at ESPN. I think you were there for about a year,
Yep.
and things didn't go exactly the way you thought they might go. Things happen. Maybe you have anxiety, depression, you start feeling down. What was it? What started to shift? And I want to talk about this if you're willing to do this, because I think our listeners, you know, you've got a lot to be admired for, but you're a human being, and you're the thing that connects you and I and John is we all go through life. And yes, we might have achieved this, and this, but yet we can't connect. I can't connect with number 31, but I can connect with your heart.
Hmm.
And that heart has a lot to do with what feelings go on and what happens and what transpires.
Yeah.
Maybe you could take us through that, and I have another
Yeah.
question to ask after that.
Yeah. You know, the most maybe the most human element of our journey, of our experience is transition. We all go through it, whether we like to admit it or not. There's a day when all of us, John, Jerry, you're going to be the ex-host of Way of the Champion. You're gonna be the ex whatever. All right. No one tells you this on the way up. All right, by the way, okay, it's a surprise. And so, what happens when you have success and you feel great about your journey and you've accomplished some things, and certainly was the case for me in the game of basketball, reaching the highest level and winning championships and being a part of that. You start to believe that you have all the answers. All right. And part of that's the gig. When you have success, people look to you for things to say in leadership. But a funny thing happens when that happens is that you lose the ability to be vulnerable. You lose the ability to say, "Hey, I don't know." You lose the ability to just let people in. And so as the stakes get higher and higher, guess what? The walls you build around yourself get higher and higher. And it's all good till it ain't, right? So what
Yeah.
made me great was hey, give me a problem, I'll figure it out. All right, Kobe Bryant, okay, I'm gonna figure him out. Carmelo Anthony, I'm gonna figure him out. Durant, just give me time, give me space, I'll figure it out, right? And so, especially in sports, you feel you're kind of like a self-made person in a lot of ways. And so I did a very poor job of developing the relationships, at a level that matters, right? I had friends and family, but when I went through my transition from basketball, I didn't want to play anymore. I reached all my goals. I wanted to do something else, but I didn't have a scoreboard for the first time in my life. I didn't have a locker room. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a championship to win. I didn't know what my metrics were. So I go to work for ESPN for a year. And it was miserable, and I knew it from the first day that this was not for me. It was everything that my basketball career was not. I did not allow myself a chance to mourn my own career. I just jumped into the next thing. So I did a lot of things wrong, a lot of things wrong. But, um, most importantly, it started to really affect my relationships. And I never let anyone in my head when I played. I thought that my mindset and my brain was my most powerful ally, and if I allow anybody into my head, which was completely wrong, it's going to take away like my superpower, right? So I was very averse to even letting anybody into my own head. And so my wife, in her infinite wisdom, been married 22 years now. She said, "Shane, I love you. I've been with you, since high school. I know you like options. Here are three options. Here's the number to the Marriott. Here's the number to uh, your attorney. Here's the number to this life coach slash psychologist that comes very highly recommended." And I said, "Heidi, I'm not a very smart man, but I'm going to choose door three." And so for the first time, I had to deal with a lot of things that I just frankly didn't deal with in my 25-year journey in basketball, that I compartmentalized, that I said, nah, it's not important, because I didn't come from a family that was emotive. And as a result, I was not vulnerable. And at a time when I needed to allow people to help me
Yeah.
and to get me through it, I
Yeah.
was incapable.
Well, yeah, the people that really mattered too. And I'll quote you. I think I have it correct. You said something to the effect, I pushed my wife away. I pushed my kids away. I was a jerk. I
I
mean,
was. I was. I wasn't like kicking my dog. I wasn't like abusive, but
yeah,
emotionally,
you weren't available.
I was not available. Was
Yeah.
not available.
Yeah.
And there was anxiety, there was depression.
Hmm.
Who was I? What was I about? Was I just a basketball player? Is this it? Is it downhill from here? Will I be another statistic like all ex-athletes? So many doubts that, again, I thought I had to figure out by myself. And learning the power of vulnerability, even talking about this story.
Right.
Because again, you're going to be next someday of something,
Yeah.
right? So it may not be the grand scale of
Well,
professional
we're a lot of
basketball.
people. This is great. I'm so happy that you're talking about this. Where a lot of people are looking at, God, I don't want to admit that I was a jerk. I
Yeah.
mean, that's too vulnerable. And a lot of people see vulnerability as a weakness. Where I'm feeling listening to you today is, what a strength. What an amazing, strong sense of character. And there's something in there that's deep. I mean, God bless Heidi, right? I mean,
Yep.
hey,
Thankfully.
these are three options. You do this, this, or this. You let me know because I'm out of here unless this. I mean, wow, what an amazing. And for you, your character said, "I'm going to take door number three because this is really what's important." You knew
Yep.
what was important, but you had to get the wake up call, the bang
Yep.
bang, right?
Yep.
Over the
Yep.
head.
A hundred
Wow.
percent. A hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Well, good
And
for her.
it's a journey that never, you don't figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't say, you won't wake up one day and be like, I finally get it. No,
Yeah.
it's a constant struggle. It's a constant battle. You're continually learning, right?
Yeah.
You relapse and you get better, and um, but it's a worthy journey. You can never be too good at relationships. You
It's
can never be
worth it.
too
Yeah.
you can never be too good at
Yeah.
transition. You
Yeah.
can never be too good at relationships. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
So it's worth the investment. It's worth the time to learn about yourself. It's to learn to talk about yourself with others, and it's worth it to let people in to help you.
I like
Yeah.
I like how you said I didn't give myself time to mourn the end of my basketball career.
Yep.
And I think it's so important that someone who had all these success and all this championships and played at the highest level and had a full career mourns it. And we have to have grace to our young athletes who have to mourn it as well. The kid who gets hurt in high school can't play anymore. The college athlete whose career comes to an end. Like you have to go through that period, especially I think a lot of people don't want to leave the locker room. So they jump into coaching
Yep.
and then they carry that baggage into coaching.
100%.
And that is a really bad thing for the people you're coaching.
100%. And especially for athletes who are so used to the next play. All right, next play. What's next? What's next? What's next? And for me, the fear was, man, if I take a year off and I go away, like no one's gonna ever call me again. And
Hmm.
that's what I thought. I thought like people are gonna forget me if I'm gone for a year, and like I'm gonna be sitting at home and no one's ever gonna want to do anything with me. And so I was so paranoid about that That's why I jumped into broadcasting, not really with thinking it through that, hey, is this in my heart? And it wasn't, and I knew it. But the fear of being alone, the fear of not having any love, that's what drove me to take that offer.
What
Yeah.
did you like about the ESPN gig?
This was very antithetical from my basketball career. I was so used to a locker room, having teammates, um, winning and losing together. I'd call a game, and uh, after the game, I was like, "All right, on to the next one." And like there was no sense of accomplishment, like ever. Like it didn't
Yeah.
matter who won. It did okay, yeah, we went through it. And so I needed that competition aspect. I needed the scoreboard. Um, I needed to go on a journey and learn people and have relationships and go deep. Look, Jerry, I was living in Miami at the time. I retired there. It didn't help that, it's 78 degrees. All my buddies are playing golf on a Thursday, and I got to get on a plane to go to Bristol, Connecticut. All right, in the dead of
Yeah.
January.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would blame me for not enjoying that experience.
Yeah.
And so I'd be sitting there miserable when it's, scraping the ice off my rental car, driving an hour and a half to Bristol, Connecticut from the Hartford airport, knowing my buddies are out,
Playing
playing
golf.
tunes, you know, playing Nassau, playing golf. And so I had a lot of envy. And so those are the things that didn't speak to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just it was, fine people, but just it wasn't for me.
Yeah. How have you found it's sort of like you mourn that time and then you have to re-find purpose.
Yep.
And you're a dad and you're a husband, but you also have your foundation. That's what gives you purpose these days?
Yeah, like I said, I do a lot of work on myself and try to remind myself what I'm about every single day. And I think I'm about the three C's: contribution, challenge, and community. All right. And I write this in my journal every single day just to remind me, like, hey, this is how I view the world. This is how I view all of the opportunities that I get. And I want to contribute and I want to make people better, like I have my entire life. I want to challenge myself to be better. Well, what can I learn? What don't I know that I can be better of? And, I want to be part of community. I want to be valued and be part of something larger than myself. And so our work with the Battier Take Charge Foundation is very seminal to my wife and I's journey in our life. And uh, we've given over $4 million in college scholarship and programming over the last decade and a half, and just trying to help young people like myself who just need a shot. Hey, coach, just put me in. I got the rest. And that was me. Luckily, I was 6'8" and can dunk a basketball. Not everyone has that opportunity. So it's up to me to find those young people around our country and give them a platform, a network, and the vision that, man, you can do big things. You can do big things with your talent and your drive.
It's such an amazing purpose. And I have two kids in college now. And I remember when my daughter graduated high school and going to sort of the scholarship night and watching, families with first kid and ever to go to college getting this $2,000, $5,000 scholarship that allowed them to go and how much it meant to that kid and that
Yep.
family. And not just first kids, and just like it's such a wonderful gift to be able to give that ability to get that education, to take that next step, to give the hand up to once you've, someone gave you a hand up and now you pass, you play it forward.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
amazing. Shane, any final words, final thoughts for our listeners? We've coaches, athletes, parents, anything you want to leave us with besides beat Carolina?
You know what? Just do your best. Give yourself grace. We're all trying to figure it out. No one has the answers,
Yeah.
right? If you if you have young athletes at home and you're listening to this podcast, the best thing that you can say to them after the game is nothing. Okay, tell them you love them. If they want to talk about their game, they'll bring it up, right? And just have a mindset of learning and of love, and just remember we're all trying to figure it out, right? And so have grace with people, have grace with yourself, and just try to be better than yesterday, right? Do that, you're gonna live a long, healthy, happy life.
Well, it's amazing to me that you're speaking the way you are at your age right now, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 46, I imagine, if I do the math right. Because at 46, I had no idea that this is what it was about. I mean, seriously, like what? If I listened to you at 46, I would have thought you were absolutely senile.
Oh, well, I appreciate that,
But
Jerry.
I really from the day I met you, I knew, and now what I'm getting is I'm getting the Shane Battier with all of that experience. So what I do sort of in my life is I'm really good at putting together acronyms, and John knows this about me. So I have an acronym for everything. Why? Because I might not just remember anything about something, but an acronym makes me, right? So I call them jacronyms. Jerry acronyms, right?
Yeah,
So while this show is going on, I have an acronym that I'm defining you so I can remember exactly who you are. So Shane, first of all, being an Irishman myself, the Shane is a Celtic origin, meaning gift from God. You certainly are a gift from God. I can't I can't tell you how much that's true. But let's go through the acronym that I've come up from you. Okay, so after listening all these conversations, uh, Shane, selfless and strong, humble and honest, authentic and amiable, noble and noetic, noetic being intellectual, enthusiastic, empowering, and exceptional. Those are the words that I came up with based on the name Shane. So I give that to you.
I
And
appreciate that.
well,
That's an amazing gift. Thank you.
it's who you are. It's not what you did. And this kind of brings it full circle for us in terms of this wonderful, amazing podcast that I'm going to listen to 1,000 times after when it's put together.
Well, Jerry, I appreciate our friendship. It's been many years. It's been many years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm grateful to you and our friendship over the years, and thank you to John for doing this podcast to, again, bring us all along together. That's
yeah.
what it's about.
Thanks for being on, Shane. We really appreciate it.
Oy, oy, oy.
Whew, Jerry, that was an unbelievable conversation with not only a man who has won championships at every level, but is a champion of a human being.
I, I can't I can't say enough about this. And what is it about you and I? We just keep getting these people that just keep raising the ante up and up and up and up. We listened to Jim Lair the other day, and can't wait to hear that. This is a perfect example of athletics as at its best and what it breeds. It breeds the potential possibility of creating amazing human beings. The gift of athleticism and sports is that it gives us the opportunity to grow as human beings, to be better versions of ourselves, and to figure out life and to come to terms with it, ups and downs. We talked about his ups. He was so open to talking about his down times and what that means. That helps me so much. It makes me feel more like a human being.
Mhm.
And he's brilliant. I mean, what can I say? He's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, so many stories. It was really interesting how he sort of tied together from an early age, wanting to make people better around him, as a way maybe not to stand out so much, right? But if my team wins, everyone's going to be happy,
Yeah.
and how that just carried through to high school and college and then the NBA, where obviously he's one of the best players, but then in the, just to be this glue guy and just what an incredible attribute. Then when you were looking at how do I make people around me better? How do I make my team better? How do we raise the standards and those championship behaviors day after day? If that's what we do, then man, the accolades and the awards, they come after that. I was thinking,
Yeah.
I didn't say it while he was talking, but every time they're considering a star player with unbelievable statistics for a Hall of Fame or something, people always ask, but did he win any championships? Did she
Yeah,
win any championships?
that's right.
Right? And
That's
it's
right.
winning those championships that sort of puts the stamp on it and says,
Mm.
yes, because they were also part of good teams. And I think, as he talked about coaching his own son, and all kids today just being bombarded with the final product and the big dunk or the goal scored, and not the hard work and being a great teammate and showing up early and staying late. But that's the lesson, and that's the
Well,
difference.
that's what makes great people great. And Phil Jackson talked about Michael Jordan, and he talked about Kobe Bryant. When they learned how to make their teammates better, it elevated them.
Yeah.
His Shane Battier, not a scorer, not a rebounder, none of that. He dove for 50-50 balls. He crashed the boards. He boxed out. He did all the intangible things, and he was elevated. So Kobe Bryant all of a sudden becomes this amazing team player, captain,
Mhm.
elevates the rest of his team. They win championships. Michael Jordan could have averaged 55 points a game. Didn't do that. Averaged 24 points a game or
Mhm.
something in that neighborhood. Elevated his team. And that's the champion. That's what championships are all about. And that's why I like what you said and what he said to finish up that conversation, which was that's what it all comes down to. And now what's interesting, John, is Way of Champions. This is the way, isn't it?
Mhm.
You and I writing another book, it's going to talk about this is what champions do. This
Mhm.
is what champion captains do. This is what champion teammates do. This is what
Mhm.
champion parents do. This
Mhm.
is what champions, this is what it's like. And and he is the quintessential champion, even if
Mhm.
he never won a championship, but he is that champion because of all these qualities, the selflessness and the humility and the authenticity and empowering others and the extraordinary gift that he has of giving and being
Yeah.
selfless is,
Absolutely brilliant.
oh my
Absolutely
God,
brilliant.
man.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. If you like this, if you love this as much as Jerry and I did, I mean, please share it. Send it to two or three people. I think it's a great thing to send to coaches, a great thing to send to athletes, send to parents. What a wonderful message from someone who has accomplished it all, and has found a new purpose in life, but has been through really tough times as well. Thanks to Sprocket Sports. Thank you to our Patreon podcast champions. Thank you to all of you who have ordered books and shared and reviewed and everything you do to help us have a greater influence, because we're every day we're out there trying to use our influence for good, to be a little more positive, to be a little more impactful, and you can help us do that. So your influence isn't neutral this week, everyone. Go
Woof.
out, use it for good.
I was hoping that would come out.
See you again next week, all.